It is.
Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go live on. Just a few moments.
Sure.
Take some time for it to kick on. All righty, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. 1 p.m. here on Wednesday. My name is PJ Prunty. I'm the president and CEO of the Greater Danbury Chamber of Commerce. This is our third segment, I believe, for our new series called Chamber Chat. I'm fortunate to be joined by Marie Miszewski. She is the president and CEO of the Regional YMCA of Western Connecticut. Marie, thanks for taking some time out today and joining us. First off, how are the family? How are the grandkids? How's everyone doing in your world?
In my world, everybody is healthy, PJ, and at this point, I hope everybody out there is healthy as well. And it's we've been blessed, and I can't wait to squeeze those grandkids, though. Let me tell you, the FaceTime works for a little while, but their attention span is not nearly as long as mine is. But I get the tour of the house with the phone. I'm seeing the ceiling, and then the fight and the tussle over whose turn it is. But I love every minute of it.
Actually, yeah, my parents are going through the same thing right now. They're struggling doing the distance, but it's it's what we got to do now. So it's all about the health and wellness. So
yep.
So let's can you give us an update as to what's changed in the Y from, let's say, early to mid-March to where we are now?
Well, it's really everything. Just like everybody else, how are we going to adapt to this new normal? So we heard yesterday that we're going to be able to do summer camp starting June 29th. So we've gotten our waivers, and we're, guidelines are beginning to be established as to how and what we're going to look like. But, there's such a need for some kind of normalcy in kids' lives, and we will have strict protocols that we're going to follow, like everybody else, and figure out how to let the kids have a good time. The whole small grouping, the washing of the hands, lots of hand washing stations, and it's not going to be a typical summer camp look, because it can't be. So we're adapting, and how do we get the kids thinking about understanding and voicing what they've been going through, because kids are funny, and trying to react to this grown-up world all of a sudden. I mean, They've really gotten thrusted into this pandemic and don't really understand it, depending upon their age, right? So I'm sure there'll be a lot of that kinds of conversations to let kids talk about what they're feeling about. But we're looking forward to some kind of normalcy. We're waiting to hear about when the branch can open up. We are looking at childcare, because we are a licensed childcare center, both from a preschool standpoint and an school age standpoint. And we understand that there's going to be this gap between when school is officially done.
Right.
June 12th, the distance learning will be done, and then till the 29th when camp can start. All those childcare regulations and guidelines and protocols are already been established, so we can just pick right up from there. But we got to check with our licensor and make sure we're all good to go there.
When did you and the team make the decision to close the facility? When was that, give or take?
So it was March 12th. We had a meeting at the branch, and we had a plan kind of all laid out on what we were going to do. And as we were sitting there as a group, people's phones were going off. The news, there was lots of news. Somebody heard somebody who was, at a conference in Washington, and they were on our swim team, or our, a member or whatever. So everything literally changed 5 times in the span of 15 minutes.
Right.
And so we decided at that point we were going to close at the end of business on Friday. Mostly because we needed people, we didn't want to cut childcare off And at that point, nobody really had a good understanding about what was going on. But, when we have so many kids and, we employ about 250 staff people, and, we have a membership base of about 9,000.
Right.
So it really became, till we understand what was going on, we had to err on the side of caution always.
Talking about reopen, do you have, I clearly don't have a crystal ball in the back of that office there. You have a sense, that's my assistant, Grant, the 10-month-old who's feeding
Awesome.
us.
I feel old.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of feeling in your gut as to when you think that timeline might be, and what phase, Jim, I'm not even sure what category you think why would fall in there. Do you have a feeling of when that might be? And then what is sort of the new normal? I can imagine that your staff and the board as well, but talking about what are the situations or the precautions you guys are going to take once you reopen? Like, that seems like a real challenge for you and the team to sort of kind of wrap your hands around, just because of the nature of the environment.
So here's the beauty about being a Y. There are 2,600 Ys across the country. And I've been on more Zoom meetings in the last 6 weeks than I will probably ever be on for the rest of my life, right? With the opportunity to learn. So Georgia's opened up, South Carolina's opened up, Tennessee's opened up, and they're all Ys there, right? And then we have our big YUSA office that's, working hand in hand with the CDC and the American Camper Association, and to help develop and be a part of the conversations about how do we open up and what is safe and what are the protocols that need to be established? What are those best practices? So quite literally, I can pick through a lot of material. I take home stacks like this every night to go read and learn from. But, it comes down to hand washing, sanitizing, and social distancing. Those are the three things, and wearing your mask. Those are going to be the 4 things that are going to be critical. As they've already said, staff at day camp are going to have to wear a mask. So we know what that's going to look like. And so that I see that all the way through as one of those best practices till we understand or we get a vaccine. But it's going to be. I'm thinking that I'm hoping we're going to be in the second wave.
Sure.
And that's the middle of June. And if not, then it would be the middle of July, right? But I totally get the 4 weeks in between each opening of the phase. We need time to evaluate and see what did this cause, and then what do we need to do to adjust. And so, again, everybody's looking for a safe environment. But I got to tell you though, our I don't want to say our existence, but our fixed expenses in the lack of membership revenue, which is really what drives and supports all the fixed expenses. This is a really, really difficult time. And I'm sure there's lots of not-for-profits just like me that are struggling. We did get PPP dollars, but what am I doing July 1st, right? I got to hope that, the doors can open in some senses. I'll bet that there's going to be number restrictions.
Yeah.
And it's 36,000 square feet over there. Add the outdoor pool. There's lots of different places you can put small groups in, which will be one of the advantages. And there's some amazing equipment out there that, unfortunately, most of this amazing equipment comes from China or Germany. To how are we going to sanitize the building? We just found this electrostatic sprayer. And unlike a fogger that people have heard about, you put it in somebody goes in a room with a hazmat suit on, disinfects everything. This is, it searches out things to cling to, so it doesn't hang in the air. In a half an hour, you could probably get the fitness center done, and people be able to be back in that room. So, there's good technology out there that we'll have as soon as we can get it off the boat and through customs, and hope that the government doesn't hijack it.
Right. You mentioned PPP. Can you give us an insight as to what that process was like, sort of an unfiltered experience? What were any of the challenges you may have experienced, and how have you seen it being successful in the Y?
So really, the PPP is about the employee, right? And getting people back to work. And we're self-insured as an organization for unemployment insurance. So it not only does it help the employee, it'll also kind of slow down for a couple of months my unemployment
Right.
claims. And then obviously there's a kick in there with 50% from the government. But the process was really simple. Um, we went through M&T Bank, and Josh Riley was awesome. He walked us through the steps that we needed to do, what kind of documentation that we had to have, and it was a very, very, very well on my end. It was really simple. I have to ask my finance director.
Right.
Equally as simple, but it just seemed like it was a matter of printing off payroll registers and providing the documentation. The hardest part was uploading 8,000 lines per page of 57 pages of data that supported our application. But M&T's been great, and they have a lot of experience with small business administration, which is one of the reasons that we went that way.
Sure.
And that was very helpful.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that it was a positive experience. Our phone, the chamber, has been sort of ringing off the hook. People have been trying to get some guidance as to the process to go for that, as well as the idle loan through the SBA.
Yeah.
Let's pivot back to the reopening conversation. You are still the chairperson of the Brookfield Chamber, is that correct?
I am.
Okay. So let's put your chamber hat on for a moment, and what are some of your thoughts on how the businesses will sort of pivot to a certain extent or react to the phases that are going to be laid out in the coming weeks and months, realizing that we're still sort of needing some more information. What is your sense? How are they going to react to that?
So as much as we'd like to think we have control over all that, it really goes back to the public's confidence in going out, right? How safe are you as an individual going to feel, going to a restaurant or coming to the Y to work out, or, whatever it is that we're going to gradually open up and how it gets opened up. I think, I've used takeout a lot.
Yep.
I love Takeout Tuesdays. There's been a lot of businesses that have already pivoted to figure out how to stay alive in here. And, I think I don't know. So it's hard to say what they need to pivot to till we know what public confidence and trust is going to be like.
Right. Yeah. Lots going to depend on the consumer.
Yeah.
And for those that are participating in the Zoom call, feel free to submit a question to the chat feature if you'd like. We have that active, so if you go down to the bottom of your screen, you can send a question to us as well. Let's talk summer camps. You mentioned that earlier on in your opening comments there. Summer camps. So as a board member through the Y, I know it's a big revenue generator for the Y. What are some of the I don't want to say concerns, but how have you had to approach this in a different way than years past? What do you anticipate some of the challenges possibly with either decrease in enrollment or what do you see as some potential barriers there?
So yes, decreased enrollment will be one because it's all about groups of 10, right? So 2 counselors, 10 kids, 2 counselors, 10 kids. So the activities and the crossing of and combining of things will be different than it has been in the past. Just because if you share things, you got to clean them, and how are we going to figure out how to keep units self-contained? So here's your bag for the art project today. Here's your bag for the woodworking project, and everybody has their own pieces, and then we just have to kind of clean up the large surfaces and spaces in between groups. My biggest concern is I've heard some of the park and rec programs are not going to operate in the local towns and cities. So and our ability to handle people's request for financial assistance this year is going to be different than it has in the past. So if you're, we've lost some funding because funders have directed it toward food banks and the COVID-19 response. But again, when we talk about kids and their need for some semblance of normalcy and what they're familiar with and in an environment that they're familiar, summer camp is going to be even more important. So, we're going to struggle with how much money can we give out. So if anybody's looking for a
there you go.
Our need far exceeds our funds on a good year.
Sure.
So I can't even begin to anticipate what that needs going to look like. I know that outside of Greeno, they have a box to be able to drop off their scholarship applications, and they quite literally are emptying it 2 and 3 times a day because it's full.
Really?
So, they empty it into a plastic bag, and then it sits in the plastic bag overnight, and, we've got all those protocols. But, that's my biggest concern is how are we going to meet that need? And then how are we going to get the kids focused on some learning as well, right? Get their brains retooled and not be in front of a screen. How do we weave lessons into what we're doing in groups of 10? Because that'll be important too.
Sure.
At least try to get their some semblance of structure that they can then be ready to go back to school in September.
Yeah, makes sense.
If and when they go back to school.
Sure. Yeah, that's a conversation.
Don't have that crystal ball.
Right. Exactly. We've served on either a lot of councils or boards, active with City Center and the Age Well, the Chamber as well. It seems like, I feel like we're in maybe 2 or 3 meetings, I feel like a week, you and I. And you always seem to have these sort of witty wisdom or bits of advice or comments, just sort of always in your the bank there in your head. What can you provide to the businesses out there, the nonprofits that are trying to navigate this time? Any bits of advice or guidance that you might be able to provide to them?
Well, don't go it alone, number one, right? Now more than ever, there's going to be a need to collaborate and see, because there's going to be a new normal. Nobody's going to look the same. So this is a great opportunity to try to figure out how do we all work together? Because, as I just indicated, funds in a good time, funding is challenging, right? So what is it that we can do together? But don't go alone, because nobody's got the answer. Nobody's going to be able to solve the problems all by themselves. So what can we do together to meet the community needs? And I think that this is really going to focus people on doing what they're really good at and letting some other things go. I always talk about reason number 7, because that's the way it's always been done. And
that's one of them I always hear.
Reason number 7. And those are the ones that are hard to let go of, right? And there's somebody's fun thing to do, but what are the changing needs that the community is going to have? Through all this, people talked about the importance of being healthy through this pandemic. It gave you a better shot at getting through this virus. So I think people are going to start to focus on their health differently than they have been. And we still know that chronic disease is a big issue, both for younger people, our youth obesity that we have around, and our older people, right, with type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetics. All that could rise to the top of importance and a focus within the community. So I'm hoping that our chronic disease prevention programs become even more important and more relevant as we go through and figure out how to meet these new challenges.
So other than FaceTiming with your grandkids and trying to stay in contact with them as much as you can virtually, what other outlets have you explored to sort of keep yourself sane, so to speak, during these shelter-in-place times and sort of this new normal we're dealing with?
So I'm learning how to garden a little bit more. I have a couple of friends that are master gardeners, and they're patiently helping me develop. It's still brown, but I'm trying to get a green thumb, because it's been nice to be outside,
Sure.
the fresh air, the change of pace, and, just to focus on learning a new skill for me. We've kind of changed the backyard a little bit, and we're trying to decorate up a few things, and climbing vines and flowers, and some of those other things that I've been doing. The other thing is, and I started it with my grandson, is learning about birds, because it's an amazing thing. We hung a couple of bird feeders, and Charlie's got one, and I sent him a book, and so we're learning about birds in New England together, and who can
That's
come
great.
up with the newest bird every day. So I've been learning and trying to identify by calls and sights. So that's been a lot of fun, as well, and then picking out bird food to match what kind of birds you're trying to get. So a couple of new things I've been learning.
Excellent. I love that. That's great. All right. So we're kind of coming up on our time limit here. Anything else you want to add to the conversation here, and to the folks that are listening and will be listening when we send this out through our communications?
I think everybody's got to take a chance and look inward and see what is it that you can do to do a couple things. What can you do for yourself? Because, especially as a mom, a wife and a grandmother, it's usually about somebody else. So I've tried to be a little more cognizant of taking a little more time for me. So what can you do? Take that walk. What are you going to do for your health, right? What can you do to make yourself healthier if you're healthy? Or wherever you are on that continuum of a health scale, how do you make it better? So that would be the first thing. And then the second thing is, you can't change the circumstances, but you can always control your attitude, right? And I'm a half full girl always. And
Half full. Yep.
well, yeah, see,
There you go.
yes.
3/4 full.
And a very important thing to be doing every day, by the
Yep.
way, is drinking lots of water. It improves a lot of things.
Yep.
As Maureen says, think water first to quench your thirst, right? So take an opportunity to do a little introspection, and how do you get healthier? Because I know I have lots of different reasons to want to hang around for a really long time and be as healthy as I can. But in this crazy time, it becomes even more important to pay attention to your health.
I appreciate that, Marie. Very well said. And early happy Mother's Day to you, and Grandmother's Day.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you again for joining us. Appreciate it. Always a pleasure
Yes.
chatting with you.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, that's great. I kind of a no-brainer having you come on the program here. We've got Stu Leonard Jr. coming up on Friday as
I'm
well.
looking forward to that one.
Yep. And then we've secured Juanita James. She's the president and CEO of the Fairfield County Community Foundation for Monday. So we're looking forward to chatting with her as well. So thank you, everyone who joined us live.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate taking the time.
Be well.
Yep, absolutely. Stay healthy and be well, everyone. Take care. Thank you.
Thanks, PJ.
Thanks, Marie.